That was the intro. How do you like our new intro?
I
This is
love it.
Capital Race. Thank you, Lee. So this is Capital Races Club. Welcome everybody. This is a live interactive interview. So the questions that you put in the chat, we can read them. We can ask them live here. And Lee, pleasure having you here. Your investment journey and your life story is fascinating. I'm super stoked because you've also been outside of the states and everything. So I hope we get into some of that too, maybe. Um, so put the questions in the chat when you have them. For those watching the replay, uh, be live next time. It's more fun that way for you all. More interaction. So without further ado, Lee, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey and how you got into commercial real estate?
Yes, thank you for having me, Samson. And let me start off by saying Happy New Year. This is the first one of these that I'm doing in 2022. Can you believe that it's 2022? I actually remember not so long ago, it felt as though we were just going into the 20s. A little bit about me. I'm natively from New Jersey, Jersey City, New Jersey is where I grew up. I went to college. I became a computer science major, and from a small school in Teaneck, New Jersey, called Fairleigh Dickinson University. I played the whole career thing, and part of my journey, as you mentioned, was I worked for this company named Accenture and traveled the world. Went to South Africa, met my wife, who's from Botswana. We left South Africa after, just basically traveling all through Southern Africa. We got another opportunity in Singapore, and offline we were just talking about your time in KL, and I had an awesome time in KL. And one of the great things about Singapore is that you could just jump from all countries. You can go to Thailand, you can go to China, you can go to KL, you can go to Jakarta, you could just go to all of these places. And one of the things that I love about all of those places is, especially Singapore, is the mixture of people. You have the Malays, you have the Indians, you have the Chinese influence, and that comes together when it comes to the food that you're eating, right? So ever since that time, I've always been a real estate investor by heart. I'm going to show my age just a little bit, but I used to be up late at night watching Carlton Sheets on those videos talking about how you can buy houses with no money down. So eventually, once I landed and made myself a home, I got into real estate and I bought a couple of properties with, some family members. That was around 2005, 2008, crashed and burned. But I was abroad from 2009, 2010, all the way through probably 2013. So I was abroad, right? So I wasn't doing much investing in. And then when we got back, we started to do fix and flips. And, fixing and flips are very fine things to do. But if you have a salary, flipping is really not beneficial to what you have to. Well, it's very beneficial to Uncle Sam. It's not benefiting you to grow your wealth. So from there, we started doing we wanted to buy a multifamily apartment building, right? But we live in a very tier one type of city. Everything here is running, in the Washington D.C. area. I would say you're at $200,000 to $250,000 a door, and when you start to go out, yes, of course, it does go down just a bit. But taking down a property, 16 to 20 units is probably going to cost you $5, 6, 7 million. And, there's an opportunity cost for investing here. So since that wasn't working out for us, so we did the flipping, we did the wholesaling. We wanted to be a single building purchaser. We saw that wasn't going to work for us. So we found out, I read the book by Gene Tobridge. It's a whole different business, and I learned about syndication. And then from there, because I'm in sales today, I just reached out to a whole bunch of people and started investing in different syndication. One syndication that I invested in led to two, and two then led to 18, right? And after 18, we just did another deal where we have access to the GP. So that makes 22 deals that we've been invested in all of the time. So, we've gone from nothing to something And we have other ambitions that we have in growing our business just the same. We still want to be in that lead co-sponsor seat, right? We want to understand what that is all about. I'm a firm believer that life is all about experiences, right? So until I have had that experience of what it is like to be the sponsor for a deal, I will know whether or not if that's something that I want to continue to do. But I always say for the people who work with me is that I'm an investor first. So in building this model and getting up to 22 deals, we learned a lot, right? And what we do is we share the information with others who are wanting to be real estate investors. But I think people have different images of what a real estate investor is, right? And some people say that they fall in love with real estate. I actually believe that people don't fall in love with real estate. They fall in love with the outcomes that real estate can afford you. And now you have to figure out, well, which channel are you going to use, because there are multiple vehicles that you could actually use in order to be able to um, make money from real estate.
That's a fascinating journey, and wow, you've been all over the world, and you have a wife also from the continent of Africa. That's deep to my heart because I'm African, also Finnish, but I'm born Ethiopian. And how um, how did you decide? I mean, as a couple, did she also invest with you in the beginning, or was it you, or was it her? I'm just interesting because my wife is also. I mean, we're in this together, raising
Yeah.
capital and doing apartment syndications and storage and whatnot. How did you get your wife on board, or how did she get you on board?
Well, you remember I was invested in real estate, or wanted to invest in real estate. So it's always been an idea that has been in the back of my mind, right? And of course, my wife being in Africa, you can build a significant amount of wealth by owning a number of different lots and properties and just collecting rents from different people. So she wasn't like new to real estate, but we had to evolve our business because we 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 wanted to make $40,000 on every single flip that we did, right? But when you still have a W-2 income, right, the more you make over $100,000, the less beneficial it is. And then we had to learn out in the United States, at least, is that the income is taxed at your ordinary income rate versus at the capital gains rate because you held the asset for less than a year. We've tried to figure out how we can, get around that. In the United States, there's something called, you could be a real estate professional as well as you have to have material participation in any assets that you own. And by doing that, you're able to offset active income with passive income. But unless you qualify for all of those things, all you get when you have your K1s, if it's a negative K1, is it accrues until you actually sell that asset. All of this is things, we're not tax professionals by far, but we have experience of learning as to what it takes in order to become a real estate professional who can qualify for material participation. So my wife is an active real estate agent. She has a license, and she's the business, right? She does most everything because I'm still, with my employer, right? She's running this operation for us.
How did she start out as, I mean, investing as a agent, or and you were doing most of the flipping, and then she came on, or how was that transition?
No, no, because I was still at work, right? So whenever we would have a flip, you know, basically how we were successful when it came to flipping is we built a circle of trust, right? When you're doing flips, for me at least, flipping is all about having a circle of trust, and we had that circle of trust. The gentleman named his name is John Lamb. He runs a boot camp right here in Northern Virginia, and when we took that Saturday and Sunday, it was a weekend boot camp. I walked up to him and I said to him, I don't know about, everyone else, but I'm going to do a deal within the next 30 days. Lo and behold, because of everything that was inside of that room, I had that circle of trust. And within, I think it was 11 days, we were under contract and we were taking over a deal, right? The great thing, and I believe one of the keys to our success, was the fact that inside of that room, we had a realtor, right? We had a hard money lender, right? We had access to a contractor, right? We had access to closing agents, right? At that point, we had the recipe. All we had to do was follow the recipe and we would find success, right? So we did that. We followed the recipe. We found success. We completed several flips. My wife became an agent because once you have completed a flip, right? Once you have completed a flip, it's a beautiful asset, right? One of the things about one of the deals when we had an agent, his name is Kurt Norton, he basically told us, oh, when you have a new property, all you have to do is light staging, right? And light staging is when you put like a flower or some candy on the countertop and you take a picture, boom. That's all you really need to do. Maybe you might do like an air mattress with a thing on it, but you got to put that sign on the bed that says, do not jump on bed, just so that you can help people with their imaginations. Because some people, when they come into a property that isn't furnished, they really can't see what it's going to be. And with the light stage and towels inside of on the vanities and in the bathrooms and things of that sort, you help them to start to paint that picture and that image of what that property is going to be like when they turn it into their home, right? So, I would say that if people want to do fix and flips, go ahead and do it. It does bring off a lot of money. The one deal that I'm talking about, that deal we peeled off about $43,000 on the first one, and that's with
In 11 days, too. Nonetheless, it's an exceptional. I
oh
mean,
yeah, and it
wow.
was a mom and pop type of property. It wasn't anything fancy, right? We made $40,000 on it, but we were nervous, right? We were nervous about whether or not if we could spend that money because we really didn't know how it was going to be taxed, and you really don't want to go and see your accountant until it's tax time. So we held on to that money. We weren't going to spend it anyway. We were going to invest that money back into the business just the same, right? But that also helped us to realize that fix and flip, it's another job. It turns into another job, right? I can't live that lifestyle like Samson has where, I'm in Mexico or I'm in, Asia. I'm somewhere else, right? And I didn't want to build myself another job. I wanted to, having read the 4 Hour Work Week and other books like that, you understand how it's possible to do these things when you are generating passive income, right? That passive income, I consider it in what we're doing right now. And it's a cliche type of term, but it's mailbox money, right? You wake up in the morning and you walk over to the mailbox, and guess what? There's a check inside of the account. It just works out for me. It's not something where I have to get my hands dirty, right? We do have to get our hands dirty when we get a new deal. We underwrite it and we make sure that the numbers can make sense and that the demographics are there, like in an area, if you were going to go to Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina, it's explosive right now, right? You got to make sure that the rents are rising, that the jobs are coming up, right? That there's an influx of people coming in. That's exactly what's going on in Dallas, Fort Worth, and Houston, Texas right now. Those areas are booming, right? It's bad for New York and Illinois and California, but it's great for Texas and all the places like that because there's a mass migration going on with people leaving different states and moving to others, right? But, that leads into a great segue because at that point in time, all of these people are moving into places like Texas or to the Triad in North Carolina. And since there's not adequate housing, right, they can't build the houses fast enough for people to actually, move into. It actually bodes very well for multifamily investors, especially value add, right? Because with value add, you already have the asset. The asset is producing income, right? The asset is producing income. And guess what? As a LP investor, you typically are going to get a check, a cash flow check, either that following month or that next quarter, right? And you didn't have to get your hands dirty. You didn't really have to stress out about it. So when I found out about value add multifamily investing, I'm like, oh well, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. So, long story short, when I do exit my tech career, I'm going to basically do something where the core of my income is going to come from real estate, whether or not it's going to be, well, it's going to be probably commercial, right? Because there's so much things that you can do with commercial. You can do multifamily, you can do self-storage. There's just so many things that you can do at this point around commercial real estate. And also one of the chief advantages of multi or commercial investing is that you can add value. Right? Like it's on you to add value. It's not like, oh, you got to run comps to see what the last property sold in square footage and bathrooms, etc. Right? When you add value to an apartment complex, you got many levers that you can actually pull in order to be able to do that. Right? Raising the rents, reducing the expenses, adding some amenities, all of that adds value. Right? And I was on the phone and having conversations with different folks, and it's been a phenomenal last 2 years. 3 of those deals that we invested in initially, right? And shout out to Dan Hanford and the partners at passiveinvesting.com. Those 3 deals sold, and the highest of them after a 25-month hold was 1.885 IRR, well, no, equity multiple. And I believe when he sent out the email, it was 30 plus IRR on a 25-month hold. Wow. Cannot beat that. It was a tremendous investment for us to get into.
Two questions. First, our audience sometimes have a hard time with the abbreviations that we use. They come from different backgrounds. So, LP, you mentioned LP, limited partner. Could you explain more about that? Because that's basically
Well, yeah, right. No, thank you. And a limited partner, right? All of these deals, another term for a syndication is a group investment, right? And there are 2 sides to the structures that are usually there, but there are other ways to have different structures. But the basics of it is that there's going to be 2 partners, which is the general partners, and the general partners are responsible for putting the deal together. They're responsible for finding the asset. They're responsible for underwriting the asset. They're responsible for doing all of the due diligence to make sure that if there's deferred maintenance, etc., that they identify it and they can, do whatever negotiation is. They need to basically put together the business plan and execute against that business plan for the term of the hold. Right now, those guys they get fees for doing all of this. But the heart of the deal and how it comes together is when you have these passive investors, which are the limited partners in most instances, and the limited partners say to the GP team, well, I'm going to give you my money in return. These are the things that you've offered me. So whenever we're looking at a deal, we have hurdles that we need to meet. We typically pass on deals that don't offer a preferred return, right? So that's one of the levers that we like to see, right? We typically like to see, a hurdle, but it's just going to be one hurdle. There's times where you see there's several different hurdles, which are what is the IRR number or internal rate of return number that needs to be met, right, before the structure changes, right? Typically, if it's a 65-35 or 70-30 or 80-20, you like for that to stay there because it's the LP investors who put a lot of the money in to get the deal and make it happen, right? So what we're doing, because we're investors first, we first started out this by investing. We learned from ourselves that, hey, these are the things that we're looking for. We also look at the debt service coverage ratio because we don't want there to be an instance where if you have a sensitivity analysis and the property falls below, let's say, 60 or 70% occupancy, right, that you're not going to be able to service the debt. So we have a floor when it comes to the debt service coverage ratio, uh, which we look out for. Also, well, the biggest thing of all is looking at the operator and being able to understand what is that operator's track record and how many times have they been successful in executing the business plan that they're proposing, right? So, for instance, if a person or group has traditionally done value add and now they're coming with an opportunistic type of deal, an opportunistic being, you're going to build it from the dirt. There's no structure there. You got to go and get permits and easements and all of those byways in order to build that structure. Then you start to lease it up. It's different from if you are value add, right, where the asset is existing, but it's a little bit dated, has deferred maintenance, and you're going to come in and renovate it, make it new, right, and then raise the rents because it's not attracting market rents. But there's also the play where you can do core, which is a brand new asset, and then core plus, which is an asset that has been there for a little while. So there's many different ways that you can play and do this and things of that sort, right? My job is to help the investors that come along with us to understand, well, what is it that we're getting ourselves into, and ask the questions, right? If people are asking you for your hard-earned resources, I believe that you need to ask all of the questions that you need to ask to feel comfortable with before you go into a deal.
Excellent. I wanted to follow up with the second question, which is, you said the 30% IRR, and what is internal rate of return? Could you, I mean, just briefly touch on that? We're gonna go to a sponsored content just after that.
Okay, I don't know how that works, but when you're looking at the returns, right? Because there's a couple of returns that you're going to be looking at, right? So there is cash on cash, right? How much cash did you invest and how much did you get back? And that's usually an annual metric. Then there's going to be AAR, where you take the amount of returns that you have and divide that evenly over the years, right? Because you're investing in an asset that's going to be multiple years, you have to factor in the time value of money. And the IRR is the formula that is used in order to make that investment work, right? So basically, at the end of the day, you're trying to compare different types of investment vehicles that you're going to use, right? And how is it that you're going to be able to compare an apple to an apple? Because when you compare an apple to an orange, you really don't get the results that you're looking for, right? So you want to be able to compare an apple to an apple. And if you're going to be investing in commercial, especially multifamily syndications, you're going to have to look at a couple of different variables. But if, having an engineering and computer science background, you don't just have one lever. You have to have two levers, and those levers are going to counter each other. And then from that, you can actually make the best decision. So, all of those things that I had mentioned, and I know, right now, if your audience doesn't understand what we're talking about, I'm trying to slow down just a little bit so that we can talk about COC, cash on cash. We can talk about IRR, internal rate of return. We can talk about AAR, annual average annual return, right? DSCR, debt service coverage ratio, right? These are all of the things that you have to put into the pot so that you can make a nice gumbo, as they say. But what we've been able to do, right, with what we've been investing in, is we've been able to take the good fruit and leave the bad fruit to the side.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Lee. We're gonna cut break. We're gonna. It's still live, so we're not gonna actually go anywhere. But I'm gonna do this because. Wait 1 second. 1 second. All right. For everybody who's watching this live right now, I'm currently in Hotel de Oro in Mexico, and yeah, you should definitely come here and check it out. beautiful staff, very, very, very great customer service, and awesome pool. 5 minutes to the lake, and highly recommend this place. That was our first time being sponsored by. And if you'd like to share your ad with us and sponsor this show, Capital Races Club, feel free to reach out to www.capitalracesclub.com and let's talk. Thank you. That was it. I'm
I
just
love it. I
I'm
love
from
your
the
life,
background.
brother.
That's my life.
I've been following you probably now for a month, right? And I
How's
am
it been?
living vicariously through you. Let you understand that I'm living vicariously through you. I think the other day you were on like a little moped or something like that, and I was
Oh
like,
yeah,
what is
we
he
drove a
doing now?
motorbike to bungee jumping. That was a Christmas gift from my wife.
You
She's
did a bungee jump.
yeah, yeah. We, wait, this show is about you, so let's talk about that in the back end. But yeah, we live 100%, and I mean, real estate allows us to do that, and investing smartly, passively, actively, whichever you do. I mean, you need the education. So to get back to the interview, Lee, how did you said you mentioned a mastermind, you mentioned one book. What would you say? What would you say to somebody who's starting out now as a passive investor? Let's start with passive investing because that I think is an easier way to break into to commercial real estate. What would your oh, okay, we have a bit of a loop on LinkedIn. This is live and it's not recorded, so um, if there's any technical difficulties, please watch from the YouTube. For now, that channel should work. All right. So, what would you say to a new investor who's looking to put money to work in commercial real estate or in real estate in general, and just want to collect that mailbox money? Because let's face it, that's what we all want. So,
That's what we all want.
yeah,
I would say, you know, and I don't say this or take it lightly with any disrespect, but a fool and their money is always soon separated, right? And we live in a global world where there's all kinds of scams, right? I would say that you have to educate yourself, right? And the best vehicle, the internet is there, but sometimes you can't trust the information that is there. I would say the best vehicle is always to pick up a book and develop a habit of reading that book every single day, right? So, as I mentioned, Gene Tobridge's book on It's a Whole Different Business. Wow, that actually let me know that this was possible. And because there are typically private investments, right, especially in the 506B versus the 506C realm, right? Because of that, um, these are private investments, so you didn't have an opportunity to learn about them, right? So that actually opened the door to me to let me know that there are many vehicles that I could use to start investing, right? The second book, Joe Fairless's book, the Best Ever Apartment Syndication book, that book is like a Bible to me, right? And I use that book for reference purposes and subscribe to his channel and blog just because I continue to learn from him, right? Or you can find a mentor or buddy who will work with you. Like I mentioned, that boot camp course that I took, I think it was $1,500. And when we did our first deal, if we used one of the players that were in the room, we basically got back all of our money, right? So there's something that's going to be there that's local. I would say first things first, when it comes to real estate, it's all about location, 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 right? So you always have to do something and build out your team wherever it is that you're going to build out your team. My business partner, she's awesome. She's in Houston, right? I'm here out in Northern Virginia, right outside of DC. But one of the things that a piece of advice that I would give, especially if you're going to do single family fix and flips, you could always do that by yourself, right? But one of the chasms that I had to cross over was the fact that when you're going into commercial, it's always a team effort, right? So you have to build out your team and then leverage the strengths of the team members so that you can continue to be successful, right? If you can leverage, like you can have someone who does the underwriting, you can have someone who does the property management, right? You can have someone that is responsible for working with investors, investor relations. There's many different components that you could have as you build your team, right? And you need to determine, right, where your team is going to be, where you're going to be investing in, right? And start there. But definitely start with by educating yourself so that you know exactly what you're getting into. Whether it's going to be, commercial real estate, if it's going to be Bitcoin or any of those, right? Understand what it is that you're getting into because you don't want to be the fool who loses their money.
It makes sense starting with education, and those books that you mentioned, they're great. And the core, I mean, so would you say when would you say that somebody who has been studying, now they've read a couple of books, let's say we have an investor who looks to, hey, now I want to take that first step. How long do you say? Because for you, 11 days, I I think that's a record. I've never heard anybody go from day one to day 11. You under contract and you close, and you actually did a great fantastic return on that. So you've been surrounded. You also mentioned it. Surround yourself with incredible people, and you were in the right connections there. So when would you say that you know that you're in the right circles, or you're ready to take that first step, first purchase, or first passive investment? Let's go with the passive investment first, and then maybe to the active, because active may take a little bit more of a. What would you say?
Well, as a passive investor, you always have to do your research to understand who that operator is, right? And the power of Google is there. Many people cannot hide from Google, right? You search for them and you go to their websites and you find other investors who have actually worked with them. And I gave a shout out to Dan Hanford and passiveinvesting.com because they have shown the way, right? They have proven themselves. The three of the deals that we were with them in, uh, we exited, right? And we exited and we got more money than what we put in, right? One of the things that I said to myself is that I wasn't going to let money be my motivator, right? And when I was first doing my first deal, I said to myself, as long as I can return my principal, right, and make $1, I would consider it a success, right? Because that very first time out, I was going to use that as an opportunity to learn. I was there every other day, just checking on stuff to make sure that it worked, right? But there are certain operators who will allow people to come into their deal, especially if it's a 506B deal, right? They will allow them to come in at a lower amount than what the minimum is, the published minimum, right? And typically, in my experience over the last several years of doing this, right, the minimum to get into a syndication is going to be $50,000, but there are also opportunities that allow for $25,000, right? And some people may be afraid of that hurdle, right? I don't think that people need to talk in terms of hurdles, because if there's a good opportunity there, you don't have to come in and raise the whole entire 50,000 by yourself. You can actually form a syndicate of your own, and you can go and get investors and tell them about the opportunity that is there. And you guys could collectively come in, right, to make that investment the first time and share in the spoils of the opportunity. Another piece, we're living in the gig economy, right? People, they don't work anymore for a job for 25 years, 30 years, 40 years. The other day, I was talking to Lawrence Laddie, and he tells me, "Oh, he did 41 years at the New York subway system," and I was like, "Dude, that is so impressive." But today, most people are working a job for a couple of months, a couple of years, and if they're investing in those 401ks, I teach people, one of the core pillars of what I do is I teach people, well, how is it that you can use your self-directed IRA in order to be able to take control? Because if you look at the perspectives, there's the 12B1 advertising and marketing fee. Why should I have to pay for Fidelity's or T. Rowe Price's marketing fees, right? And since I'm still employed, I noticed that whenever I do a 401k purchase, there's a record keeping fee that they charge me every time there's a deposit. Now it's only a dollar 50, but a dollar 50 times, 24 times a year over 10, 20 years, that starts to add up, right? Because really here, the biggest thing that you have is the time value of money, right? And you have to put your money into a cycle such that it is always earning, always earning, always earning. There should not be a day that you have money in an account that isn't carrying interest, right? So I have this, system that I've developed where, if I receive a dividend, a cash flow dividend from one of my investments, I immediately move it to a platform where I can make a short-term loan, right? So that it can constantly build up money. And then once I have enough money again, I'm moving it back out and I'm putting it into another syndication somewhere else, right? And that's what I've been doing over, I would say, the last couple of years. And on one platform that I have over a 50% return on my money that has been invested, right? And now I'm talking about these other deals that I have where I've gotten a 1.885 equity multiple, 1.76 equity multiple. I'm doubling my money every 2 to 5 years. And that snowball effect means that as it comes down the hill, right, that snowball is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And of course, we always get back to, well, what is it that you're looking for, right? And my goal is to, Vikram, he actually helped me to understand, well, what are the 5 freedoms and how is it that I can access each of those freedoms? And for those who don't know, it's time, right? Location, location because you live everywhere in the world, right? Is vitality, right? You're supposed to take care. This is your vessel. You have to take care of this vessel, right? It's financial. And the one that is critical, and now you hear everyone talking about it, is mindset, right? Because you have to see, like Carol Dweck in her book Mindset talks about a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. And, neither one of them is bad or good, right? It's just that one of them puts you into a certain position and opportunity in life, whereas another one will put you in a certain position in life. You have to, at the end of the day, you are the CEO of you, and you actually need to take control. So I tell people, hey, if you're no longer with that employer, why don't you move that money over into a self-directed IRA and take control of it into these different investment vehicles? And the self-directed IRA, as long as you're not making an investment with somebody above you, your mother, your father, or someone below you, your children, etc., there's many different vehicles that you can invest in, as long as it's not like art or things of that sort. You could buy Bitcoin if you wanted to inside of your self-directed IRA. It's all up to you. But I say trust yourself, right? Have trust in yourself and take control of your life and your retirement and do whatever it is that you need to do so that you can take back your time. And by having back your time, the world is yours to do whatever it is that you want to do. That's my goal. That's what I'm working towards.
Holy cow! That in itself, there are so many things we could unpack First, I would like to give a shout out to the audience on LinkedIn. Great to see your interactions and keep it coming. If you have any questions at any time, feel free to pop them in. We still have about 20 minutes and then we're out of here. But I'm just kidding. But one of the things that you said was the velocity of money. Or you want your money to work for you. You want it to accumulate and work. And I like the phrase from, I'm sure you maybe read this one, Richest Man in Babylon,
I have.
when he says that when your money is working just as hard as you are, and it works for you, and just you pay yourself first, you go and invest in yourself and you educate yourself so you know how to invest better. You just summarize the whole book in less than 5 minutes, and it's, yeah, also mindset. It is key. What would you
Mindset.
say?
My mindset will hold you in the box,
Oh yeah,
right?
most
And the box is what you believe you can and cannot do, right? And if you have a growth mindset, you are thinking to yourself, how is it that I can get outside of this box, right? Whereas a fixed mindset says that this is my box. This is all that I know is what is in my box, and I can't get out of my box, right? So the mindset, I would say the first thing as you're reading these books, you have to be getting rid of the limiting beliefs and replacing them with supporting beliefs, right? As they say, 90% of the iceberg is below the water, right? But those are your subconscious beliefs, things that you don't even tell yourself, right? We're only conscious of about 10% of it. So this is the muscle that has to be worked the hardest in order to get you to where you're looking to go. And books are a vehicle for that, but it starts here. You got to do push-ups and pull-ups in your brain that tells you anything that you want to do is possible.
that's well said. And you also mentioned when you said groups, are there other places, for instance, in Capital Races Club, we have our channel, we have our groups, we have our LinkedIn page where you can chat and connect and network. We're also we're affiliates of the gobnetwork.com, which is an even larger, sorry for that.
That's what happens when you go live.
Yep, there's no planning for anything.
Hey, that's what you get when you're live.
Yeah, we can definitely tell that this is live. So, what groups and wait, I was saying about GOB network, which is an even bigger network where you can connect with both passive and active investors, which I always refer people to. It's a You have to be referred, so let's get to know each other. Homeowners.com. You can fill in your name and number, and I'll get with you later. Um, what groups would you recommend? Where could people go and interact with people who are not just actively trying to get there, but who are also already there trying to reach down and pull more people up with them? So, where should we go?
I would say there's nothing better. And, from when I got out of college in 98, there's nothing better than a RIA, Real Estate Investor Association, right? And that RIA is going to have everyone there. As I mentioned at my boot camp, right? There was a wholesaler that was there, or I had access to a wholesaler. One of the things that hurdles that people typically can't get over is the aspect of money, right? If you have a deal, the money comes. If it's a good deal, the money will actually come, right? Inside of that, there's a gentleman who I'll give a shout out to. His name is Rob Chavez. He runs a meetup group over here called Grid, right? And Grid actually breaks down into some acronym. I don't really know it off the top of my head, but I met Rob 15, 20 years ago when I went to a local meetup. And from there, I've just been networking, with so many different people, right? I also mentioned Mr. International Lawrence Laddie. I was on his meetup the other day and met people from all around the country. And that's the one great thing about meetup.com is the fact that, the only blessing that you would talk about from COVID is the fact that it allowed us to not just think local, but think national and international, right? And with the technology, I'm a technologist at heart. There's so many things that you can do via, well, we're streaming to many different platforms, LinkedIn and Facebook and Periscope and whatever else is out there, right? You have access to all of these different things. So I would definitely say use the platforms that are available to find people who have similar interests to your own, and then go out and start having those conversations. One of the things that I think it's Laddie who he always says is that a closed mouth doesn't get fed, right? A closed mouth doesn't get fed. So you have to go out there and communicate with others and let them know what it is that you do. At that point in time, you're no longer an employee, but you're a CEO, right? And the CEO is responsible for growing the business. You have to go out there and network with others. And the fact, remember, I said this thing all comes together as a team, right? So one of the things that people do is they start competing with others, right? They start competing with this. Oh, this guy is in Mexico, right? What is he doing in Mexico? What is he doing differently than I'm doing? I say that's the wrong attitude. That's the wrong approach. I'm happy for Samson and I'm living vicariously through him. But I would say you find the people who are doing the things that you want to do, and you figure out how it is that you can bring value to their lives. And if you can bring value to their lives, they will welcome you in and show you the way that they're doing things. That's what I would say. Long story short, I know I was a little bit verbose, but if you can add value to what other people are doing, they will more than welcome you into their fold. And that's what I found.
That's a fantastic way of building relationships or building businesses. Or I mean, that's fantastic. How would you say, you said add value when you do go to meetups and when you do meet with people? So what are some of the first things that you like to say when you come to a new meetup? Maybe you're a little bit shy, it's the first time. How do you take that pressure off, and how do you just what are your first steps when you go to a new event like that?
Well, there's a gentleman who runs Epic Real Estate. I don't remember his name, but he says the first thing that you have to do when you go into a room is you have to have something called the ABC, right? Simple term. First couple of letters in the English alphabet. ABC stands for your audio business card, right? And he breaks it down as to in that couple of minutes when you stand up and you're at the meetup and you have to introduce yourself, what is it that you want people to take away and remember? I'm Lee Johnson. I help technology professionals, right, discover and find investing in passive investing in multifamily real estate, right? I'm a wealth strategist and I want to help you to retire early. What's going to be your audio business card, right? Such that and every time you meet someone, that's what you're going to play. That's your audio business card. It's your ABCs. You shake hands, right? And a lot of people, they don't like business cards, but back in before COVID, when life was open, I had a whole deck of business cards that I would give to people. My wife gives a whole deck of business cards to people. Business cards aren't for being inside of your pocket. They are actually losing money for you that they're in your pocket. You have to go and talk to people and explain to them what it is that you do to add value. One of the ways that you could add value is you can underwrite, right? Underwriting is basically just understanding what goes into a spreadsheet, figuring that all out. Underwriting is an asset in this business. And if you can underwrite a deal, you can, do waterfalls and all of those things, renovation schedules, yada, yada, yada. That's something that you can do. If you understand how to put together a capital stack, right? That's how the debt and the equity is going to be there, right? That's a value. If you can be boots on the ground, that's additional value, right? So I would say always, if you can determine how you can bring value to someone's life, right, they will welcome you in. They will welcome you in. They may not give you access to the refrigerator on the first time you're there, but they will welcome you. I would personally welcome you in if you could add value.
That's that's a beautiful way of seeing building relationships. And when now when you're doing syndications, you're raising capital, you're underwriting deals, and you're the active investor. How do you communicate for your more importantly, what is the communication that your passive investors? How do you connect with them in a way where they get to understand what you're doing, learn from you, invest their 401s or whatever vehicles they choose to invest with? Like, how do you go through that whole process? Because here at Capital Races Club, that's one of the main subjects. How do you communicate your message to the investors that just want to put their capital to work or their money to work instead of worrying about just collecting those checks? So, what will be your one or two tips? And then we're going to go slowly towards closing. And
Yeah, and that's a great question. Again, a silent mouth doesn't get fed. You have to use the vehicles that are there so that people can understand what it is that you do. We have a meetup, right? We have a meetup, and we were doing uh, the last Thursday of the month. It's called Loudon REI Connect, where, when I created this meetup, it was really just to network with local people in Loudoun County, Virginia, so that we can help each other to grow, right? I'm all about hugging people and helping them to grow. I used to say at my meetup is that when I'm on my yacht, I don't want to be there alone, right? So come on in and hang out with us, and let's grow from each other. So the meetups, that's what I would say. You just go into meetup.com and you search for multifamily investment or real estate investing, right? And I would say you have to make an investment, and time can be an investment that you're making to learn from others and continue to network with others, right? I would say, uh, do social media, right? You can do LinkedIn, you can do Instagram, you can do Twitter, right? You can do Facebook, right? To let people know where you are. But one of the things, the second thing that I would say is you typically want to have a website that could actually help you to build credibility, right? So several of the deals, most of the deals that we have, except for the last two, are on our website. One of them, we're waiting for the monument sign to put up there, because we always put up the monument sign on our website. But you want to have a website because the website helps to build credibility, to let people know who you are, right? So I would say, if you're going to come into this game, you have to understand what you're doing, right? Right? Because, if you're raising capital or working with others, you have to stay within the confines of the SEC regulations. So you have to understand in and out 506B, 506C. What is a sophisticated investor? What is a accredited investor? Who's a qualified client? And things of that sort, so that you can know, well, what binds you to it. So, I love reading books. So the one I'll put out there is for Hunter Thompson. I met him at the Best Ever Conference in 2020, and I read that book several times over, just so that I can have a complete understanding of what I was doing, because I'm not only investing my money, I'm helping others to understand the investment vehicles, and I want to make sure that they're safe as well.
I'll add it here in the chat for those that are watching the video. They can see here's the book by Hunter Thompson. That is grateful for. Is there a lot of background noise right now?
Yeah, it's like you're in a bus depot. Somebody just called out for something. Hey, but what happened to all of the questions?
These were the questions. Uh, let's Thank you, Lee. I mean, we're gonna ask you first of all, how do people find you? You say investment partners says on your logo right here. Um, do you have an email as well?
Yeah,
Website,
it's going to be,
your business card.
it's either Lee at valueinvestmentpartners.com. We wanted to spell it out because that's what we do. We try to bring value to others in their life. So you can reach me at info or at Lee at valueinvestmentpartners.com. You could also reach us on LinkedIn. My wife is responsible for all of our social media. So we already have a Facebook page called Value Investment Partners / Loudon REI Connect. So that's there. We have the meetup. We have www.valueinvestmentpartners.com. You can go there and schedule time with us. We have a calendar out there. We have our meetup. We have our private Facebook group. She's gonna set up something on Instagram, etc. I let her take care of all of that, right? That's a portion of the business, and we're happy to help anybody with anything. We believe that we believe in giving, so what we give out, we will receive back multiple. So reach out to us. Let us know with any type of questions that you have. We have been doing this for 25 years, but we have learned a lot since 2017 and what we've been doing. And all we want to do is continue to do more.
That's that's an outstanding. I mean, journey and climb to success so fast, and also continuously growing and learning, and the whole batting alley is super important. What thought or what message would you like to leave Capital Races Club listeners with for this interview? We would greatly appreciate having you back here. But for now, what thoughts would you like to leave the audience with?
Well, we talked about this already, but everything starts with having the right mindset, growth versus fixed. And one of the things that I would say to people is experiment with different things, right? Because there's a quote that I have on my wall in my office from Nelson Mandela that says, I never lose, I either win or I learn, right? And how do you learn? You learn by experimenting, right? The first rule of investment in investing is preservation of capital. You have to figure out how it is that you can put a little bit of capital at risk so that you can learn. Once you understand the operating model, you can put more capital at risk, right? So I would say two things that you want to take away from this. First one is get your mind right as to what it is that you want to do. Have a plan, because they say if you don't have a plan, you plan to fail, right? Get the mindset right, write down your plan, right? But don't be afraid to experiment. Experimentation leads to learning, learning leads to knowledge, knowledge leads to growth. That's what I would have them take away.
That's a beautiful message. Thank you so much, Lee.
My
Um,
pleasure.
1 second, I'm gonna block this user. Somebody was spamming on YouTube. Thank you so much, everybody, for making time for this today. And um, any questions you have in the back channel, you can reach out to Lee at valueinvestmentpartners.com to find out more. You can also find Lee on LinkedIn as Lee Johnson. If you search for him, you will find him. And yeah, that's it for today. This was a great episode, and thank you so much, Lee, for making time for this and for sharing value with us and our audience today. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Appreciate it. Talk to you soon, and we're gonna close out. Peace.
Peace.